What's going on, everybody? So today we're tackling chapter 17 of 1 Samuel, where we're going to be looking probably primarily more so at David than any of the other people that we've started doing character studying on. So we're gonna tackle chapter 17 today. Definitely not going to get into 18 because we got 58 verses to go through for chapter 17, but it's going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm super glad you guys are here with me. So let's just get after it. Now the Philistines gathered their armies for battle. And then they were gathered at the Soka, which belongs to Judah, and they camped between Soka and Azekah in Ephes Damim. Saul and the men of Israel were gathered and camped in the valley of Elah, and drew up in battle array to encounter the Philistines. The Philistines stood on the mountain on one side, while Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, with the valley between them. Then a champion came out from the armies of the Philistines, named Goliath, from Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a bronze helmet on his head, and he was clothed with scale armor, which weighed 5,000 shekels of bronze. This was a big guy. He also had bronze greaves on his legs, and a bronze javelin slung between his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and the head of his spear weighed 600 shekels of iron. His shield carrier also walked before him. He stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel and said to them, "Why do you come out to draw up in battle array? Am I not the Philistine, and you servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves and let him come down to me." So pick your greatest warrior, send him out here so I can kill him, and so we can go ahead and make you our captors. Plain and simple. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will become your servants. But if I prevail against him, like I just said, and I kill him, then you shall become our servants and serve us. Pretty confident, right? Which, why wouldn't you be? You're massive. So let's look at a couple of facts about Goliath real quick, even though he's not a main portion of our character study. So first things first is, how tall was Goliath? I mean, it says 6 cubits and a span, so anywhere between, 3 feet difference here, anywhere between 6'9" or 9'9". Think about it. If he was just, say even like Andre the Giant size, which Andre the Giant was 7'4". And think about how he dwarfed Hulk Hogan, who was 6'7". Okay, so big guy. Anywhere from 6'9" to 9'9" is massive. So that part doesn't necessarily matter. But how much does 5,000 shekels weigh? Because that is going to say a lot in itself, because your armor, you have to be able to move in, and it's bronze. So bronze is not necessarily very heavy in general. But his armor would have weighed 157 pounds. It's a lot of extra weight to carry around, right? So, I mean, big guy. What about the size of a weaver's beam? In diameter, it's anywhere between 20 and 49 inches. So, I mean, he's like it's a big spear. That's something crazy to think about as well. Very, very big fellow. Oh, I had already turned the page. Again, the Philistines said, I defy the ranks of Israel this day, and give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of the Ephrathite of Bethlehem in Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And Jesse was old in the days of Saul, advanced in years among men. The 3 older sons of Jesse had gone after Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons who went to the battle were Eliab, who was the firstborn, the second to him Abinadab, the third Shammah. David was the youngest. Now the oldest 3 followed Saul, which is interesting because David is the armor bearer. Keep that in mind, or is an armor bearer of Saul, and like one of. So the Philistine came forward. David, the youngest of Saul, now the oldest followed Saul, but David went back and forth from Saul to tend his father's flock at Bethlehem. So, armor bearer, this explains a lot, right? He is with Saul sometimes, but at this current point, this is why he has not met Goliath yet, which is going to show a lot going into this next encounter. David, the Philistine came forward morning and evening for 40 days and took his stand. Then Jesse said to David his son, take now for your brothers an ephah of this roasted grain in these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to your brothers. Bring also these 10 cuts of cheese to the commander of their 1,000, and look into the welfare of your brothers and bring back news of them. So the dad's like, well, I ain't heard anything in a little bit. Why don't you gather up this here goods and take it in and check on your kin? So then we, see how that goes here in just a minute. So David arose the next morning. Well, hang on. Bring also these 10 cuts of cheese, picking back up in 18, to the commander of their 1,000, and look into the welfare of your brothers, and bring back news of them. For Saul and all the men of Israel are in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistines. So David arose early in the morning and left the flock with a keeper, and took the supplies and went as Jesse had commanded. And he came to the circle of the camp while the army was going out in battle array, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines drew up in battle array, army against army. Then David left his baggage in the care of the baggage keeper and ran to the battle line and entered in order to greet his brothers. He's like, oh, this is getting ready to, pop off. I need to go get in a place, essentially. I don't know if it was necessarily his rightful place, especially whenever we get to what his brothers are getting ready to say to him. Of course, angry older brothers, like, they're going to be how they're going to be. So 23 is where we're going to pick up. As he was talking with them, behold, the champion, the Philistine from Gath, named Goliath, was coming up from the army of the Philistines, and he spoke these same words, and David heard them. When all the men of Israel saw the man, they fled from him and were greatly afraid. The men of Israel said, have you seen this man who has come up? Surely he is coming to defy Israel, and it will be that the king will enrich the man who kills him with great riches, and will give him his daughter and make his father's house free in Israel. Then David spoke to the men who were standing by him, saying, what will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should taunt the armies of the living God? David's pretty confident, right? You could even put that in your notes. Matter of fact, I highly recommend putting it in your notes. because we see a very confident David. Where are my notes? There we go. So, confident, but let's think about his confidence here for a minute. Actually, you know what? We're going to table that for just a second. We're gonna continue on for just a moment. The people answered him in accord with this word, saying, "Thus it will be done for the man who kills him." Now Eliab, his oldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's anger burned against David. Older brother, who's scared, you're not going to do anything. You know, can you imagine? Like, think about like how you would feel if your younger brother was about to be like, "I'll do it." Like, now you're going to look like a punk, right? So, older brother speak, getting ready to, it's incoming. His oldest brother heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's anger burned against David, and he said, "Why have you come down? And whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your insolence and the wickedness of your heart," trying to make it a heart situation like you're just here for the glory. You just want to see violence. You just want to see all the horrors of war. Really trying to lay into David. You've come down here in order to see the battle. But David said, "What have I done now? Was it not just a question? What did I do, Eliab? What did I do wrong? I can't ask a question. What's going to be done for this guy? If somebody kills him? Hey, say again what I'm going to get if I do this." Then he turned away from him to another and said the same thing, and the people answered the same thing. Double check it. So I'm gonna get this if I go kill this guy. I'm gonna get it. This is what I'm gonna get. When the words which David spoke were heard, they told them to Saul, and he sent for him. David said to Saul, "Let no man's heart fail on account of him, but your servant will go and fight with the Philistine. I'll do it." But there's more to it than that, right? Let no man's heart fail on account of him. We can't be afraid of this guy. We cannot be afraid of this guy. Not just himself. Let no man. We shouldn't be afraid of this dude. Yeah, he's massive. But, he mentioned up here, how come he should be able to taunt the armies of the living God? No respect, right? Not no respect for David. No respect for God. This is really setting the tone for how David's going to be as a king, as a man, that we're going to see later on. Does David always do things right? No, because none of us do. But this is really setting a tone. David doesn't want the credit. David's not giving himself the credit. He's confident. But before we get the full answer here, I want to read a little bit more. Then Saul said to David, "You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, while he has been a warrior from his youth. You're just a kid. You can't do this, David. Don't even consider it." David's hearing a lot of negativity, isn't he? But what does David say next? But David said to Saul, "Your servant was tending his father's sheep when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb from the flock. On 2 separate occasions I've defended my flock against insane beasts." Think about how strong a lion is. Think about how strong a bear is. "I went out after him and attacked him and rescued it from his mouth. And when he rose up against me, I seized him by his beard and struck him and killed him." So he kills a bear, or a lion in particularly, by a whole, like this dude's a hoss at a young age. "Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, since he has taunted the armies of the living God." He's not mad because he's being insulted. He's mad because God's being insulted. These other guys, they're scared and they're cowering. What are we going to do? David's like, no. God is being insulted here. This is wrong. We're going to we're going to put a pin in that for just a second. We're going to read some more. And David said, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Go, and may the Lord be with you." Then Saul clothed David with his finest garments and put a bronze helmet on his head, and he clothed him with his armor. David girded his sword and over his armor and tried to walk, for he had not tested them. So David said to Saul, "I cannot go out with these, for I have not tested them. They're not fitting right. It seems like, seems like there's a struggle there. Something's not working with this. I can't go fight this guy because I will die in this." So I already read that. He took his stick in his hand and chose for himself 5 smooth. So he goes over to the creek out back and picks out 5 smooth stones, put them in the shepherd's bag, which he had, even his pouch, and his sling was in his hand, and he approached the Philistine. So, from the way this reads, it's almost as if, okay, Goliath's out there heckling these guys, and David's asking these questions. Goliath's still out there heckling. He goes over to the king, asks these questions. Goliath's still out there heckling. And sure, maybe Goliath went away because, he does the morning and then the evening heckling and, challenging. But let's say all this happens within the morning one. David, Goliath's just over there shouting ridiculousnesses, and David's doing all these things. David goes over the creek. He's like, okay, let's look. That one. He gets his 5 stones, right? And then he, puts them in his bag, and he starts heading towards the battle lines. Then the Philistine came on and approached David with a shield bearer in front of him. So Goliath's shield bearer, doing his job, putting a shield in front of Goliath. When the Philistine looked and saw David, he disdained him, had a hate. He didn't like him, couldn't stand to even look at him. He just, this young, good-looking kid coming to challenge me. For he was but a youth and ruddy, with a handsome appearance. The Philistine said to David, "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine also said to David, "Come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the sky and the beasts of the field. You're gonna be the critter's dinner tonight. You are mine." Then David said to the Philistine, "You've come to me with a sword, a spear, and a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have taunted. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I will strike you down and remove your head from your body. Not only am I going to kill you, but I'm walking away with prizes, your head being one of them." "I will give the dead bodies of the army of the Philistines this day to the birds of the sky. Likewise, not only will it be my body, like David saying, it's not going to be my body. It's going to be your body and all of theirs. And the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And that all this assembly may know that the Lord does not deliver by the sword or spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands." Then it happened when the Philistine rose and came and drew near to meet David, that David ran quickly toward the battle line. So, the guy's coming, and he's like, okay, I'm going to rush forward to, the battle line, and what happens next? David put his hand into his bag and took from it a stone and slung it and struck the Philistine on his forehead, and the stone sank into his forehead so that he fell face. So just boop, and it goes in and hits the brain, and down goes Goliath. Thus David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and he struck the Philistine and killed him, but there was no sword in David's hand. So David ran and stood over the Philistine and took his sword. So he takes Goliath's sword out and cuts off the head of Goliath. When the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. The men of Israel and Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines as far as the valley and to the gates of Ekron, and slain Philistines lay along the way, but Sharim, even to Gath and Ekron. The sons of Israel returned from chasing the Philistines and plundered their camps. Then David took the Philistines' head and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his weapons in his tent. Now when Saul saw David going out against the Philistine, he said to Abner, the commander of the army, "Abner, whose son is this young man?" Dude, this guy plays harp for you. He does all these different things. You don't even know whose kid he is? And I lost my place. Okay, and Abner said, "By your life, O king, I do not know." The king said, "You inquire whose son the youth is." So when David returned from killing the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the Philistine's head in his hand. Saul said to him, "Whose son are you, young man?" And David answered, "I am the son of your servant Jesse the Bethlehemite." That being said, that's pretty well where we could end it, right? But just a couple of quick things real quick. David was confident, but he wasn't confident in himself. He was confident in the Lord. He was confident in God. He didn't like that God was being insulted. He didn't like... He took offense for God. He didn't take offense for himself. It's pretty big, right? It's something to dwell on for a week, I think. So, we're going to do that. We're going to dwell on what that really means, because that means a lot. You may not realize it, but it definitely does. Guys, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll get into 18. I don't know if it'll be the next episode. I might do something special for the next episode. But that being said, I hope you have a happy Thursday. Hope you wrap up this week in a wonderful way, and I hope that you remember to go worship with your local members of your Church of Christ in your area. And thank you so much, and have a wonderful day. Again, bye.